Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Adobo and Avocados. We haven't done an episode for such a long time.
Oops, we were both busy.
Yeah. So I think the last time was the one with Lavina about, like being a new parent, and that was 3 weeks ago. So a long time, but we're back.
We're back. Yeah.
Do you wanna tell first, Nicole, like anything that you've been up to, anything you wanna share?
I think what have I been doing? I've been traveling a bit and I've also taken some leave, which is appropriate for what we're talking about. And also I started Grafana Office Hours, which is a new live stream for work, so that's also been taking up some time. Yeah, I think there's nothing really big for me to report. Just honestly try, since this is the venue for it. I've been burnt out recently and I'm trying to claw my way back out of that.
Yeah.
How about you?
Like similar thing, I was on leave as well. I think it was quite common like for August because it's like, the summer holidays with kids, like breaking up from school as well. We visited family in Toronto. So we stayed there for 2 weeks. I had a lot of Filipino food. My cousin, she baked pandesal from scratch.
Oh, I miss that.
It was so good. Yeah, like and then she even made the breadcrumbs from scratch. So it was really good.
Wow.
So yeah, August was really just about, spending time with family as well cuz my nephews, they haven't, met my daughter, so that was their first time meeting them. And it was great for, Gabby as well to see some of my family. But other than that, there was a conference as well. So I was speaking at Lambda TESMU conference, and yeah, mainly it. That's mainly it. And I think it's good that we don't really put the pressure on us to always do an episode of Adobo and Avocados weekly because we acknowledge that we also have other things going on, and that's okay.
There's this is a theme for this whole episode, right? But there's
Yeah.
always something. Like I've never had a moment where I thought, I'm not doing enough, or I don't have enough choices of things to take up my time. There's always something.
Yeah. So, today's episode, it's sort of, broken down into, I guess, like three different themes. So, we've got setting boundaries, time management, and essentialism. So I was thinking like maybe we could start, talking about what essentialism is because I know this was something new that, I've recently discovered. You recommended me the book, and I actually finished reading the book Essentialism last week. So, this would be a great opportunity for us to talk about, the book, what is it about, like what's who is an essentialist and what are the principles, I guess, behind it. So do you want to start? Do you want to maybe talk about what essentialism is?
Sure. I came to essentialism from minimalism, and minimalism is about doing it. Basically it's less is more.
Yeah.
And I always had some issues with it because I felt that sometimes, and not every time, right? Like some people do it in a healthy way, but some other times I felt like it was almost an obsession with reducing itself, like
Mm-hmm.
with having less. And as a person, I don't want to have less. I want to have more. I want the maximum enjoyment that I can possibly have out of life, the maximum meaning out of any activity. And there was something about minimalism that really rubbed me the wrong way because its focus is on having less. And I
Mm-hmm.
know it's supposed to say that having less meat lets gives you room and space for more in your life, but I just never got I never became okay with that idea.
Mm.
So I thought essentialism, when I found it, was much more my style because essentialism is kind of similar to minimalism in that it does prompt you to examine what you want in your life and what you don't. But
Yeah.
the focus, and maybe it's semantic or maybe it's just a nuance, but for me it's an important nuance, that the focus is on the things that you choose to keep, not on the things that you're reducing. So essentialism is about identifying what are the things that are essential, that are actually important in your life. What are the things that you cannot do without? And getting clear on those, and getting clear on what are all the other things that you actually don't need, and getting rid of those.
Yeah. What really struck me about essentialism is, this focus on, um, it's not really about, getting more things done, but it's about getting the right things done. Because I think, people, they have this tendency to view being busy is similar to being productive. Like, if for example we recap today's events, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was so busy, I did this, I did this, I did this. But then, how many of those things are actually essential to what you want? Like, some of those things could just be noises, or it could just be things that like really distract you from what is the most essential. Oh, I think Nicole is frozen.
Oops, sorry
Oh,
about
there
that.
you
I'm back.
go. Yeah. Is your
So what
internet
were you
connection?
Yeah. Sorry, I
Yeah.
missed you. I missed you for a couple
Okay.
seconds.
No, I was just basically saying that, people, we used to mix up being busy as, it's similar with being productive. And if you, I don't know, recap your day and you reflect the things that you've done for that day, how many of those things are actually essential to, what you want, or to, what is important to you? Because a lot of things are, probably like noises, or, distractions. And when I read this book, that's when I'm like really realizing that there are many things that, I do as well, that aren't really essential to, where I want to go. So I need to start focusing on, reducing those and focusing on the things that, really matter.
Yeah, and I think, the next book that I'm going to recommend to you
Okay.
is called 4,000 Weeks, I might have already mentioned, and it is
Yeah.
very similar to along the same lines as this, that productivity is a trap.
Yeah.
And I think I really fall into this because I have a YouTube channel about productivity, and
Yeah.
I always fall into this automation mindset of like, I need to get things automated so that I don't have to think about it and I don't have to do as much manually. And that's true. It does get me to that point. The problem is I don't stop there. I'm like, oh, now I have this free time because I'm not doing things manually. Let me take on
Mhm.
more things.
Or
That's the
yeah.
problem because that
Yeah.
more isn't actually essential. And this essentialism book is something that I reread, regularly since I first read it, because I need that reminder not to always seek more.
Yeah. So I wonder if now's the perfect time to discuss, like, um what is it about, you know I guess, the notion that the more things we do, the more, productive, the more better it is. Because I guess there's, like, a few issues that, essentialism is trying to, tackle. So, like, from reading the book, like, the first issue is, like, in today's life, and I guess, like, even before, but I guess it's much more like prevalent now, is there's too much choices. So Greg was talking about, these paradox of choice. um and do you remember, like, when we were young, like we only really have a few channels. And like back in the Philippines, we only have channel 2, channel 5, channel 7. But
Yeah.
now, like, there's so many like streaming softwares, like, subscriptions as well. Like, it's not just enough to have Netflix, but you also need to have, Disney Plus or Prime or, something else. And there's just so much choices. So any sort of, I don't know, thoughts around that? Like, why having too much choices is actually harmful?
I feel very strongly that this is one of my core issues that am very I'm averse to shutting down choices and shutting down options. When it comes down to it, I will always choose naturally, instinctively, I will always choose the way that preserves the most number of choices. And part of that is like a self-defense mechanism, because if you choose one choice and then it doesn't work out or something, you can always pivot to the other. And that's what I'm thinking. The problem is that now, I mean, we're privileged. Anyone who's watching this is privileged. We have internet, we have a good enough lifestyle that we can afford to be here watching YouTube, and many people are working in tech where we have higher than average salaries. And all that is great for some things, but on the choice front, it means that there's never been a time ever where we didn't have where we had more choices than we do now. And it's not just what shirt am I going to wear? It's like, do I want to live in this country? Because as a remote worker, I could move anywhere in Europe, but we're both in Europe. Some of us are not in the EU, but we're both in Europe. And we could just go to, I don't know, the Czech Republic. We could live there. That is a choice, or we could move to another continent, or we could change jobs, or like, there's so much, and the internet has really shown us that the borders are coming down. And
Mhm.
that's not all positive, because you can go into analysis paralysis, where you just go through all of the options and are unable to fully commit to any of them.
Make a decision. Yeah. And I think this is where Greg, is really like sharing with us that, because of this abundance of choices, like I think like yourself, you need to, focus on like I guess weeding out things that are, not really important. Because I think there was a quote that he said that um essentialism is about distinguishing like the many, is it the many trivial with the vital few, something like that. So with all these choices, like you have to like really actively, weed out the things that, okay, I think this is, distraction, or I think this isn't, aligned to like my core value. So yeah, I think it's an active, like activity that I guess you have to always do, so that you don't end up in this analysis paralysis that you just shared. um the next issue that Greg pointed out was, there seems to be this idea that, we can have it all, like, I guess there's a lot of emphasis on things like the hustle culture, like that you get rewarded if you work harder, if you stay up late, if you work, 7 days a week, things like that. And there's like entrepreneurs out there that, are actively, vocal about, this hustle culture. Gary V, he's one of them. And um maybe, for some it's a good thing, but I think like in the long run, the hustle culture is, gonna, I guess, end up, giving you more negatives rather than, the positive. um because it's like, if you think about it, it's like, you're allowing yourself to work as much as hard, but for what reason? Like, there's other trade-offs that, like, there are always trade-offs. So if you, I guess, like, focus on, doing a lot of things in like certain areas, like, how is that gonna impact your health? How is that gonna impact your personal relationships, your family relationships? So every choice that you make, it has like a trade-off. So that's also one, I guess, one issue that essentialism is like trying to tackle.
Yeah, in economics, we have this idea of the opportunity cost. So,
Yeah.
in economics, when you talk about the cost of something, you don't just think about the cost, the price to buy that thing. You also talk about what else you can't buy instead of it. And that to me is really powerful and something that we can, I think we should think about more, because every time we say yes to something, we are saying no to something else, because
Mhm.
otherwise, I think the problem is that sometimes we have a list of tasks or projects that are endless. Like, we never run out of things to do, and we're comparing that to something, we're trying to fit that into something that is limited, that is finite, which is, things like time or
Mm.
effort or mental energy. And it's not fair to draw that comparison, because one is limitless. And so at some point, you're going to have to acknowledge that you do need to set some sort of limits. Otherwise, you're just never going to get through it, and it's not a realistic way to live.
Yeah. I think Greg also mentioned something along the lines of, if you don't control your life, someone else will. And that's a really powerful statement because, if you're not, I don't know, like doing something, or like, making decisions, and, you're just letting someone else make those decisions for you, then, they're controlling your life, they're controlling how your day to day looks like, how your weekly schedule is like. And back to the 4,000 weeks book, on average, we only have 4,000 weeks. So we really have to, I guess, be careful of, like you said, like saying yes to everything, because every time we say yes, that's, a no to something else, and that something else can be much more important. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
need to do that more often.
yeah. 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 And then the other one, I think it's related to this idea that you can have it all. It's just, this social pressure. Um, and I can totally relate to this because I was listening to this podcast, and like, I guess, you know being a woman, there's this, maybe the social pressure nowadays that, okay, we're, working, but then there's this social pressure that, we also need to be like a good, homemaker. We have the social pressure that, yeah, you need to learn how to cook, you need to do this, you need to be good at, doing stuff. And this just boils down to, a lot of like societal like expectations, that people might have. And not being careful with that, again, it can lead to, not knowing what is essential. Because I think this is where you also need to understand that if you spend a lot of, energy in like one part, like, we can't really have it all. So, there's no point in trying to juggle like everything at once, because at the end, like, we're not going to be able to do like a great job. So you need to, focus on what is essential. So for example, with me, my essential is, I need to be like stimulated, I need to be learning, a lot of things at work. And then at the same time, from, like family, or, like my relationship with my daughter, that is also important. So I make sure to, set a clear boundary as to when work finish, so I can, spend that, time with my daughter, and, with like family and friends as well. So Yeah, I think that's also maybe one issue that I think is very, like, what's that word, like, it's very like push into us that, there's this expectation that you need to be good at this, that you need to, be excellent in like a different area while you're also juggling like other things.
Yeah. I think that that's really difficult because it's easy to say, "Oh, you should only focus on things that are important." But figuring out what actually is important or essential to you, that's not always a very straightforward process
Yeah.
because everything is important in the right context. Everything can be important in the right context.
Yeah. And
It's like, for
I think this.
example, if I say I want to learn German, is it important? Well, I do believe strongly in the value of learning a language, but
Yeah.
is it essential now? So it's like it's not just is it essential, but it's also is it essential for me right
Mhm.
now, right
Mhm.
here? It's like there's a
Yeah.
presence to it because it might be essential in the future. If I move to Germany, then it's going to be essential,
Yeah.
but for now in within this context, it's not.
Yeah. And I think an example that I want to share is back then, like when I was starting out, my public speaking journey, like my personal brand, I remember saying yes to everything. And like it was so hard for me to, say no to some events, and obviously that had, some negative like ramifications. So now obviously like we still, do a lot of like conference speaking, but I've actually turned down a few of them. I've turned down one event this month, even though it is important. But again, asking that question, is it actually essential for me at this moment? Because I already have, a few conferences that I have to plan. We're doing a talk together, like something like a topic that we haven't, like, obviously we've talked about in this like live stream, but we haven't done it in a conference. So I need to, focus on that. So um whereas I guess me like couple of years ago would just say, yeah, yeah, that's fine, I'll just, I'll just try and fit that, to my busy working schedule already. So yeah, it's good because at least now I'm aware that, yep, I can't be present at all times. And, that's perfectly fine. I'd rather, give 100% to something rather than, not really great amount of efforts, and I'm already spread out too thin.
Yeah. Something that I'll just share it is one way that I start to think about what is actually essential for me. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm great at this, but
Mm,
this is one way that I've found is helpful. And it is to have a list of my core principles in life as a person. What do I value the most? And here is my note on this. This is actually public because it's just a bunch of principles that I've identified are important to me that I'm not saying are important to everyone. For example,
mhm,
learning in public is one of them. And then I also say like what it looks like when I'm practicing this and what it looks like when I'm not practicing this. So essentialism is one of them, and it talks about routinely assessing people and basically everything in my life, honesty and authenticity. And so this list is just a handful of things that I really prize in myself that this is what I'm working towards. And they're not like, oh, I want a nice house or a kind
yeah,
husband or kind partner. They're more basic than that. I'm trying to get
mm,
at something that is more about me. more
Yeah.
abstract. And what I do is when I create my yearly objectives, so I have like OKRs. So I have yearly, and then at work we do quarterly, and then I also do monthly, weekly, daily. And in all of those, I have this note embedded in them
Mm.
because every point I want to be assessing like, is this project something that's going to make me compromise on the things that I've identified are important to me? Because if that's the
Yeah.
case, then maybe I shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. Oh, this is perfect. You've inspired me like to also those like core principles written down because I think I know what is essential, but again, having it written down and if you're being pulled into this project, then you just have to refer to it and say, okay, this isn't essential, or this isn't part of my core principles. I'll say no to this opportunity. So having this constant reminder, and what's great about this is you can always um like update it, like if you have
Yeah, I
new
do.
principle, or if there's something else that I guess doesn't work anymore, then you can just remove it from that note. So yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah, I just think it's like requirements traceability. You know how you start with the requirement before you start to write the test cases, and everything needs to be linked. Like if there's a user story or an epic, or and then you create different tasks, like day-to-day nitty-gritty tasks from that. They should all be linked somehow, because
Yeah.
you need to be able to pull back at any point and think, why am I doing this again? Like what was I going for?
Yeah. So, maybe now we can expand on like some of the principles that Greg explored, because I've written a few as part of my notes. So, I think we've already talked about the first principle, which is like the power of choice. Again, when we don't um try to have this power, then other people will just determine like what is important or what should be part of our day to day. So this is a really important principle, because if you have the power of making choice for yourself, that basically removes other people like doing it for you. So I guess, yeah, that's a really important one. And then the other principle, and this is what I need to practice more, is this value of extreme criteria. So um one quote that he said is, if it isn't a clear yes, then it's a clear no. But then, like, sometimes you still think, okay, well, it's a maybe, so it could be a yes. And then some people will have certain expectations, and then next thing you know, you're being pulled into something because you've said maybe, or you've said, or like you haven't said yes, but you also haven't said no. So Greg just
There's another
recommends.
book.
Oh,
There's
okay,
another
more
book
book
that I
recommend.
wonder if he was referencing. It's by someone
Ah,
named Derek Sivers. It's called Hell Yeah or No. And the premise
oh,
is
okay.
that if it's not a hell yeah, then it should be a no.
It should
And
be a no.
he says, refuse almost everything, do almost
Yeah,
nothing, but the things that you do them all the way.
yeah, yeah.
So I
That's
really
that.
like
Yeah,
that as well.
yeah. Because like, imagine if someone said to you maybe, like instantly, like our brain just interprets that as yes,
Yeah.
and in your head, you're probably thinking, "Oh, I should have just said no," because then this expectation has suddenly come up.
And maybe we could do that from the other side too, like when we're approaching someone and saying, "Hey, do you want to do
Mm,
this with me? Here's a new project I'd really like your help on." I
yeah.
think, at least for me, when I sense hesitation, my
Mm,
tendency is to try to convince them. And there might be cases where maybe they just didn't have the information or you didn't express it right. But I think sometimes we have to take that maybe as a no. And this
Yeah.
has to do with consent as well. Like it used to be no means no, but these days it's more about affirmative consent. And that's a much kinder way to do it, where it's not no means no, it's yes means yes. So until you get that yes, treat it as a no.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's one way where we can be respectful of other people's boundaries.
Yeah. That is true. The other principle is again this reality of, trade-off. So we've already covered this because um if we're doing, one thing, this means that we're letting go of, something else. So we have to always, I guess, measure um every opportunity, or like every time that we say yes, against like the trade-offs that can occur, so that we're making sure that we're, I guess, like choosing the right things to focus on. um and this other principle is about, the power of saying no. So again, we've already touched on about this. Like I think I'm getting better with this. Like obviously there's still some situations where it's difficult for me to say no, but I'm much better now compared to like few years back.
I have a practical suggestion, and this is a bit like show and tell. I didn't expect to show this. I have this free open source app that I use called Espanso, and it is basically a keyboard shortcut manager. But what
Mhm.
I like about it is I can define all of these replacements. So I have things that I say a lot, hi there, let me
Mhm.
know, or thanks.
Yeah.
But what has been really important is the no. So I have some
Oh.
things for no that I like. I think about questions that I'm often asked, and
Yeah.
then I craft the no. So one is like, do you offer consulting services specifically for Obsidian? And and sometimes people ask really nicely. Of course, I'm flattered that they
Yeah.
want to hire me, but I just can't. And so I
Mm.
have this replacement. So I say no in a nice way and why,
Yeah.
and then I recommend other people. Or there's
Yeah.
like this no sorry one. So the way it works is I just do that, and it's like a nice single line that I don't have to think about, because for
Mm.
me, saying no is harder mentally. If I have to say no,
Yeah.
it's going to take me longer to reply to you because I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to say no. It's not pleasant, you know. Or
Yeah.
like another thing is for sponsorships. Like sometimes I get approached for people who want to sponsor a video on my YouTube channel, and you know, almost 100% of the time say no, and I do it a lot. But it sucks
Mm.
to have to craft a new reply every time. So now I just have this.
Yeah.
So I would say no spons product name, let's say, and then it automatically, it has a nicer little note, so
Yeah.
I'm not just saying no, you know, and it says I don't believe it's a good fit, and things like that. So this has helped me because I no longer have to think about the no.
Yeah. Oh my god, you have to show this to me, like how you set it up,
Sure.
because yeah, because it's very common, like, especially with like conference, like it's like conference season, and every time I, want to reply no, I have to, craft this message as to why, and then I have to recommend a few people. But doing that, like, it really sucks because I'm like turning down an opportunity. Whereas if I just, type the shortcut, it's not gonna be as difficult because like mentally, you're just, I guess, like you're already using like an existing template, so it's, much easier, and it makes saying no much easier. So you need to show this to me how it works.
Yeah, sure. I actually just posted in the comments a video that I've made about this
Awesome.
app. It's so cool. It's
So
open source. So it's really
I will
great.
have a
Just a single developer that's doing it, and you can set all of these templates in plain text.
yeah. Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. Yeah. Let's there's so many things that I want to do after this. But yeah, the other principle is around this momentum of focus. And Greg recommends that if you already feel that you're spread out, too thin, then it's time to let go of some commitments. Because I guess, like, we have this tendency to um um like, if we already know that we're not getting much out of it, it's like this sunk cost like fallacy. But we've already like given a lot of effort, we've given a lot of resources, then we feel obligated to continue doing it, but it's actually not giving us any value. So Greg recommends to, yep, it's time to let those go. It is hard, and even with me, like, if I'm doing something that I've already done like routinely, but then if I feel that, what's the point of me doing this? Like, do people actually care that I do this? It's just in my head that, yep, I have to let this thing go because it's not really giving any value at all.
Yeah, it's the regular reviews. It's like the
Yeah.
retrospective in the agile world. That's so important because if you set the, like, for example, that's why I have my core principles embedded into every check-in point, every day, week, month, quarter, year. Those are front of mind because if I created them but I never look back at them, then
Mhm.
it's really of limited use.
Yeah. Gosh, this episode is so useful. And then the last principle is about the importance of clarity. So Greg said that essentialists, they say no to 90% of the opportunities that come their way. I think he gave an example about Warren Buffet, about his wealth comes from, like, 90% of his wealth comes from like 10% of investment. So he's really careful on saying yes to every investment opportunity that comes along. And the the good thing that obviously has come out of that is, Warren obviously is very successful, very rich. So he's focused on those 10% of his investments, and he's giving like all of his energy, rather than, like, I guess, looking at other smaller investments that have been offered to him. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that
yeah.
an important thing on this front, on clarity, is that I can't oversell how important therapy is and introspection and just really thinking about what you want and who you are, and
Yeah.
what you think you want might be different from how you've been behaving. And then
Yeah.
when there's that dissonance, it's important to dig into that. And I really think that, it might sound a bit woo woo to, like, to have this journey of discovering yourself, but it is essential to being a good worker and a productive person too, and having a meaningful life, because there's no point not being realistic about who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that all comes down to this idea, not this idea, but this realism that we only have one life. So we might as well make it like meaningful, and close to like our like core values and principles, rather than what people are expecting of us. And I know, in, again, this is easier said than done, especially in, different cultures or like different expectations. But yeah, it's one of those things that, yeah, this is the only chance that you get in life, so you should really, make the most out of it and focus on the essentials.
Yeah. And I guess the next step, once you are clear on what you want and what is essential, the next step is putting that into action, which is I don't know if
Mm,
you, maybe this is where we can talk a bit about boundaries.
yeah. Yep. I think, yeah, again, like we've talked a healthy amount of, setting boundaries on like previous episodes as well. Cuz um again, with all these things, like it's always easier, said than done. So you really need to come up with, some action plan, or you need to come up with, some like strategy on, how you, say no to like other stuff. Do you want to start first? Like, what are some things that you've done on, how you have set boundaries, and not just work, but like, personal boundaries as well?
Yeah, so I also want to bring up, I want to expand it a little bit and talk about the difference between boundaries, agreements, and rules. Because I think on all three of those levels, we are going to have to set limits if we want
Mm,
to stick to what's essential. So, with a boundary, to me, a boundary is something that you set for yourself. So, a boundary
yeah.
is you communicating what you are going to be willing to do or to not do. So that doesn't affect anyone else unless they want to deal with you. You're just saying, hey, if you want this from me, then this is what I need, or these are the
Yeah.
circumstances that I would give it to you in. And that could be like my time on a project. And you need to be able to have those conversations with people and communicate them. So you can say, for example, in your case, you said to us, "Hey, I have a young daughter. There may be times when I have to not be on video or not be able to attend a call or something because she's running in the background and has an emergency or whatever." That's a boundary for you that we respect. It's not really restricting what we do. It's just we have to know that that is part of working with you. And then
Mhm.
there's agreements. And agreements are more like they're limits that all everybody involved has agreed to. Things like how we've decided as a team but also as a company that if someone is on leave, that we should all try to encourage them not to work. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes things happen where we forget someone's on leave, that's different, but we all agree that that everyone deserves to have time off, and we're not going to be nagging someone unless it's really urgent, which is I don't think it has ever actually happened. That's an agreement, and you have to make those agreements with the people that you're working with in order to be able to defend what is essential to you. And then there's rules, and rules are one sided. They're things that are just kind of take it or leave it. And it might sound drastic, but an example of this are company policies. For example, we have a company policy that we have Grafana Global Shutdown Day once every quarter,
Mm,
which is actually next Friday. And
yeah.
that's a rule that the company has set, and it's arbitrary. It's not arbitrary, it is one sided, it's unilateral in that they have said it and everyone just has to follow. Sometimes those are necessary so that people don't say like, oh well, I know it was supposed to be my time off, but this other person is working, so I feel like I need to work. No, it's a rule that you need to follow. And to be able to defend what is essential for everybody on an individual level, we have to have these three layers working in tandem.
Yeah. I haven't thought of it like that, cuz but yeah, like what you've mentioned about, the key differences between boundaries, agreements, and rules, like it all makes sense. Cuz I guess, like, you setting a boundary, um some people, might not respect that. And this is where, maybe having like clear agreements can, enforce that specific boundary. And, like similar with the rules as well. So these are really great.
Yeah, and I think part of that is time management.
Yeah.
And for me, I get asked a lot like what does my to-do list look like? Because I talk a lot about productivity. And the
Yeah.
thing is I don't use to-do lists because they don't work for me. And I think that's because of what I said earlier, that they're never ending and my time is not never ending. And lists also treat all tasks the same, as if they had the same priority and the same duration and the same amount of mental energy required, or emotional energy. And so the way that I do it, that I enforce my boundaries, is through a form of time boxing. I do calendar
Mm.
blocking. Everything
Yeah.
gets put into my calendar, whether it's a meeting or just like a date with myself for self-care, or
Yeah.
like if I have a calendar meeting for meditation, for example, every day.
Yeah.
And I find that if I don't put it on my calendar, then one, it doesn't get done. But two, also, I kind of forget all the other things, like how much things take up. Because, when you accept a project, like I'm okay, I agree to speak at your conference. Well, I
Yeah.
actually, the speaking part is like what, an hour at most? That's
Yeah.
not the part that takes up a lot of time. You have to
Yeah.
like block time for research, and then block time for working on the slides, and then block time for rehearsing, block time for travel to the conference, block time for the rest of the conference. It's a lot. And if you're
Yeah.
not blocking out every bit of that, I just think it's really hard to hold that in your head, that like, oh, I said yes to this thing that's 1 hour, but really it's a month. It could
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. I preach also about, this like calendar blocking, and this is something that I have been doing a lot, like most recently. And even things like going to the gym, I now add it to my calendar, and this is for a really great reason. So an example that I can think of is like today, like after our episode, I've got a few minutes break, and then I'm going to attend a gym class, because to me prioritizing my health is also an essential part of who I am. Someone tried to book reschedule a meeting, and I just kindly said I can't, because I already have some activity, and I know the activity is not work related, but like I can always, like catch up, like a sync with them and ask, hey, what did I miss? Is there anything important, for me to do on? Because if I, end up not going to, this gym class, then again, that's one thing that I haven't really like stayed true to myself. Because to me, like being active, like trying to be healthy and keeping fit is one of the essential that I try to live by. So yeah, time blocking really works. um I am doing like a book writing as well, so now I put a time in my calendar, even if it's like outside my working hours, like after Gabby's gone to sleep, I'll block like an hour or like 2 hours of my time just to focus on book writing. And so this way I don't have to panic like at the end of the month, to say that, oh my gosh, I have to write like 20 pages. So at least if I'm doing tiny bits a day, and it's all blocked in my calendar, then that's one way of like managing my time, because we all get the same 24 hours a day. Like no one's getting extra hours, so it's really just about how you manage and like prioritize your time.
I think maybe we should mention some specifics as well, because it really helped me, and it took me a while to come up with this like calendar scheduling stack. For me, it's Google Calendar, because I've tried many other calendars, but Google Calendar, unfortunately, I would like to get out of Google, but it's still the best. It's easy to
Yeah.
share. Like, we both have partners. I share it with mine. And that way he also knows what I'm doing and when I'm busy and when I'm free. And also Google Calendar is great for the synchronization between work and personal
Work.
through the
Yeah.
next app, which is reclaim.ai, which I know you use as well. Reclaim is like an AI assisted scheduling tool where
Yeah.
you can it kind of moves around things that can be moved around. So you tell it what needs to be done by what point. But sometimes, like, I think if I have a meeting that has to occur at a specific time, I'll book it on my calendar as a meeting. But if it's like a task where I need to get this done this week, but whether I do it at 9 a.m. today or at 2 p.m. tomorrow, it's not that important. I give Reclaim that criteria, and then Reclaim just kind of moves things around depending on what I actually got done. And then the
Yeah.
third part that I think you also use is Calendly. So Calendly links into Reclaim, well, through Google Calendar, and
Yeah.
also with Reclaim kind of indirectly, and lets you send a link to people and have them book a time with you, taking into account
Yeah.
not just meetings but also the tasks.
Yeah. Yeah, these are all great tools. Calendly, again, something that I've used a lot because I find it easier, like, just to share that link to people, because rather than me saying to them, hey, what's your availability, like, I'll just tell them, okay, we can catch up, feel free to book it. And I always keep my calendar up to date, so at least I know that if they try to book something with me, it's, like, a time that I'm not, that busy, or a time that's free. So yep, I recommend Calendly, and they have the free version. It's just, the one that I'm using is the free version. They obviously have like the paid version where you can try to add like multiple like calendar integration, but like for the most part, it really does the job. Apart from time blocking, because I know like some people, they also talk about the Pomodoro technique. Have you tried using that? Not using, but have you tried doing that where you work for 25 minutes uninterrupted, and then 5 minutes you take a break, and then you do the same thing?
Yeah, I have tried that as well. Sometimes it works, especially if there's something that I'm like resisting. I find that starting just helps. But once I get started, I like a longer Pomodoro, like maybe
Mm,
45 minutes and then 15 minutes
yeah.
break, or even an hour and a half and then a half an hour break or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
it depends what I'm getting into. So I do that, but I also do like day theming sometimes.
Mm.
Have you done that?
No, but I've read that from the Essentialism book. I think he gave an example of, it was Jack Dorsey, the ex CEO of Twitter, where he has like different themes of, what he wants to focus on a daily basis. I haven't done it. So yeah, what are your thoughts around, yeah, day theming?
So it's been helpful for me to have some themes. Like Friday for me is a day where for social media and also live streams, because I often have two live streams
Mm,
on that day. So I
yeah.
already know that that day I'm a little like I can't start on a coding project or something. I just feel like I'm
Mm,
always thinking later. I'm checking my watch. Like, is it time to get ready? Do I look presentable? So I only like get presentable on that day, and then I do other things. So
oh,
I'll record my personal YouTube videos on that day as well, and then I'll also schedule some even social meetings on that day. So it's like all in the one thing. So I'm in the frame of mind of like talking to people and connecting to people, and not so much coming up with new ideas, but like drawing it out of people and having a conversation. And then, for
Mhm.
example, Mondays and Thursdays are no meeting days for me. So those are the days where I plan. Like I on Mondays, I plan what I'm going to do in the videos. I plan what I'm going to do in the live streams. I plan the rest of the week. I do a lot of like, what did I say I wanted to do, like reviews for objectives. And
Mhm.
then Thursdays are usually deep work days where I'm starting something new and I just have the entire day to
Yeah.
not be on video. So
Yeah.
that's helpful for
Um,
me as well. Do you do
yeah.
Pomodoro or something like that?
I have tried Pomodoro. And I think similar with you, I would like a much longer time. So I haven't really stuck with the 25 minutes. Like 45 minutes to
Yeah.
an hour. So I've tried that and it does work. So I guess yeah, as long as it works for you, it doesn't matter how long it is. But yeah, it's important to always, take that break after you've done a task. It's quite similar with the exploratory testing, like time boxing session.
Yeah.
So you make sure that you've stopped after this set of time, and then you don't continue or you try to explore something else. So I have tried that approach, but the day teaming, yeah, that's probably something that I might explore, because I know with work there are like couple of certain areas that I want to focus on. So it could be writing, and that could be just a day focus on like writing, and then a day focus on like the videos. So even with the adobo and avocados, like maybe we can move it to a different day or something like that. But yeah, that's something that have piqued my interest, definitely.
Even if it's not a full day, like social media as well.
Yeah.
I have like Saturday nights for me is when I do social media. Like I go through comments and I look at,
Mm,
Discord, and like I catch up on all those things. The little LinkedIn messages that throughout the week is just, it's nonstop and
yeah,
it peppers your entire day. So I just kind of time box it to a few hours on a Saturday night. For me, like I have personal messages as well that I have to go through. And I find it more useful to be in that mindset where it's just like, okay, for the next 2 hours, I'm just answering comments and that's fine.
yeah,
And it's not like high intensity or anything, but it's also not stopping me from doing other things.
yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try day teaming and see how it works for me. I'll report back to you.
Yeah, I think those things are important ways to set boundaries for yourself. Like a lot of these
Yeah,
productivity things are really based on you, right? So they're also based
yeah,
on how you work. So for me, when I write, I always schedule it for between 10 to midnight, 10 p.m. to midnight. And I know that wouldn't work for a lot of people, but that's when I'm the most creative. And that's
yeah,
when, like, you know, most people are asleep or not working. And
yeah,
I find that it's just quieter. But for somebody else, it might be better to schedule something at like, I don't know, 6 a.m. or something. I'm not one of
yeah.
those people.
No, I can relate to that, because with this book writing, and I was saying to my partner about this, like I have to do it at night because that's when I can write. Like I can't have the creative, juices, the creative thinking like in the morning. Even like in the afternoon, like I'd rather do other stuff. But it's weird, and I don't know if it's because this is the book, but with work stuff, then yeah, I feel like I can write during like the morning. So for example, yesterday, I meant afternoon. So yesterday afternoon I was drafting a blog post that I want to write about Grafana Faro, and that was fine. But then when it comes to my book writing, it always has to be at night, because I can't do it in the morning, or whenever I have some like free time as well. So it has to be at night.
Yeah, that's important to know about yourself. Like, this is when we get to introspection and sometimes therapy to figure out what
Yeah.
actually works for you. Like, for me, for some people, they like the consistency of a daily routine. Every day at
Yeah.
this time, I always go to the gym and then I meditate and then I do this or whatever. I'm more like I still need some consistency, but having every day look the same is like I
Yeah.
really chafe at that. And so that's
Yeah.
why I found day theming. So it's like every Tuesday looks the same, but Tuesdays
Mhm.
and Wednesdays don't look the same for me. And I like that.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah. But yeah, I'm gonna try dating and see how it works for me. Maybe the last example, not related to time management, but even with, I guess, like, financials, because one of the things that I have been doing, and it's, working really well, because weed out the non-essentials in terms of how I'm spending, is I now keep track of a financial, like, spreadsheet. I've been doing this for a few months now, and it's really working, because at least I can see, oh my god, can you still see me? There you go.
Yes.
Sorry, my monitor just like randomly froze. Anyway, so yeah, in terms of this like spreadsheet, it's been really useful for me to weed out the non-essential. So things that I have subscribed that I'm not really using, I've gotten rid of that. And activities that I want to focus on. So for example, I want to like introduce Gabby to some sort of music lessons, then I put it there now, and at least I can sort of like budget as well, like financial wise, like, okay, I'm doing well in this area, but I'm not doing well in some other area. So we can relate that back to this essentialist like thinking as well, because like you're actively, like removing, expenses, or like, like subscriptions that doesn't really give you value, and you just focus on things that, maybe are, really essential. Like obviously we have all our like monthly expenses, but then things like, is this experience going to, give me something in terms of, like life improvement or like skill improvement, things like that. So yep, I just want to share that yeah, having a financial spreadsheet is really useful, and it could be one of the tools as well that you can use if you want to, be more like essentialist in like other areas in your life.
I've been using for the last maybe 10 years, 12 years, an app called You Need a Budget. It's a web
Mm,
app, but also a mobile app that works well with multiple people. Like my husband and I, we share, we have joint finances. And
yeah.
it's basically the same thing that you're talking about. It is a way to have like buckets for your money, because one of the main things that you have to learn is you shouldn't look at the account balance, because again, it's kind of like looking at the conference and just seeing the 1 hour talking slot.
Yeah.
This way you actually see the buckets of the categories of what the money is doing. Like you might have, let's say you have $100 or something. You might see that $100 and think, well, I want to buy, something frivolous for $90. I have the money. But what you
Yeah.
don't realize is that that $100 is already committed to something else. And,
Yeah.
20 for this and 30 for that, and so on. Um, and that for it's not for everyone, but tracking all of my expenses really helps me identify some really silly purchases or recurring expenses that I've agreed to that I've set up that I really need to stop.
Like the number of Switch consoles.
Yes. Oh no, now you're calling me out. I sent Marie and some of our other
Yeah.
coworkers a photo of the number of Nintendo Switches I have, which is 6. 7 if you count the one in Portugal. It's kind of embarrassing that I've collected that
7.
much. It's just for me, by the way. It's one person.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Maybe
not
we can have an
essential for sure.
episode about, yeah, about financial budgets or yeah, something like that.
Yeah, let's do it.
But
I have a lot to say on the topic.
nice. Cool. Well, we've reached the full hour. We've exceeded a tiny bit, but yeah, I I really enjoyed this episode because and this is a disclaimer, like I'm not saying I'm a full essentialist. I've just finished the book, but we just wanted to share, things that we've learned, things that are working for us, and yeah, things that like I specifically want to try in terms of like how can I improve my time management better. So yeah, I hope this episode was useful. Next week, so I think we're back with another guest, and we're gonna talk about a topic that most of us have felt. So yeah, better stay tuned for the next episode.
Okay.
But for
Thank you
now,
everyone for watching.
thank you, and yeah, have a
See
great
you
day.
next week.
Bye bye. See you.